up in the church. Uncover the truth behind America's literacy crisis in Making America Read, exposing the challenges millions face in reading for work, and celebrate the trailblazers who are shaping history with Black history icons. Chicago edition. Vaughn TV is easy to watch on Roku, Amazon Fire, Apple TV Plus, the WVON app, or at Vaughn.tv. Vaughn TV, for the culture, by the culture.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZzzQuil.
ZzzQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZzzQuil nights. Explore our products at ZzzQuil.com. Use as directed. Keep out of reach of children.
During tax season, your personal info travels to a lot of places you can't control. Between payroll, your home office, your tax preparer, and the IRS, if your W-2 gets exposed, that's just the ticket for identity thieves. That's why LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points every second. If your identity's stolen, they'll fix it guaranteed or your money back. Don't let identity thieves take you for a ride. Save up to 40% your first year with promo code CLAY. Visit LifeLock.com. Terms apply.
At WVON, Black History is not just 28 days in February. It's 24/7, 365. We're the talk of Chicago. 1690 WVON. It's the Wake Up Show with the Illinois Black Chamber of Commerce on Chicago's essential storyteller, WVON.
Welcome to the Wake Up Show, Chicago.
Rise and shine. It's the Wake Up Show, where every sunrise is a call to action. Powered by the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce, we are the champions of change, advocating for diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility in the world of corporate and government contracting. It's not just a show, it's a movement. So get ready for another dynamic journey as we wake up the world to a new era of opportunities and empowerment. Ladies and gentlemen, President Larry Ivory.
And it is time to wake up Chicago. Good morning. Good morning. I'm LaDonna Raeh of Raeh Consulting, and I'm also a proud member of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce. That is so important to say. I'm also a member of the NAACP, but I can keep going. Watch this. We are the Wake Up Show Chicago. We're here each and every Saturday from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Central. You guys can give us a call at 773-591-1690. And be sure to follow us on social media, which is YouTube, if you look for the Wake Up Show Chicago, and you can find us on Facebook for the Wake Up Show Chicago. We are sponsored by Wind Creek Casino Southland, and that is in Homewood. I've been out there several times, and we love having them as a sponsor. Our last networking event was at Wind Creek, as a matter of fact, and our next one is going to be at Gallery Guichard on March 6th on a Thursday, starting at 6 p.m. And without further ado, I've got to introduce who I am co-host to, and that is the leader who has been the forefront of economic empowerment as the president and CEO of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce and chairman of the board of the National Black Chamber of Commerce in Washington, D.C., Mr. Larry Ivory. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, LaDonna, and good morning to our listening audience. And we are proud to bring our content to our listening audience. We are the Black Chamber of Commerce. We believe that if we strengthen Black people, we strengthen Black communities, and we strengthen America all at the same time. So it is our pleasure for us to bring real relevant information to our listening audience to help business get to the next level. So LaDonna, we got an exciting show today because there's a lot going on, as you know, on Capitol Hill, and people are frantic, trying to figure out what to do. And great fighters, great basketball players that stay calm, cool, and collective, and they get back in the game and get their heads back in the game. So today we're going to get our heads in the game. We got none other than Nigel Stevens, one of the incredible lobbyists on Capitol Hill, who's in the mix, who understands a lot of things that are happening on Capitol Hill. We're excited to have him on the show to give us a little bit of update and really engage in some real meaningful conversation, not about belly aching about what's happening, but determining basically what we're going to do and what we can do from an
But
individual basis.
now that sounds pretty general, but I titled this on our social media just so everybody who has gone onto our social media and looked at this, what does the data say? Like why Democrats keep losing votes and the fight for real solutions. As you guys have heard, we've got our current administration, no matter if you want him to be your president or not, and we've got the co-president as my girl I'm sorry, I'm thinking about WVON earlier. She always calls him the co-president. But it's important to know who's really running things, and that is us because we can vote. We can vote with our dollars, and we can vote with our votes. So I want to make sure everybody knows what we're going to be talking about and what does the data really say about many things. So no matter who's in administration, we got work to do. Are you ready to bring on our guests?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Hey, it is my pleasure to have on the show again, who's no stranger to the WVO listening audience, is Nigel Stevens, who's the head of strategic strategy. Phoenix is it Phoenix Strategic Strategy? I'm gonna have the information in front of me, Nigel.
Phoenix Strategies. Yes, Phoenix Strategies.
Okay, got you. Nigel, tell us a little bit about yourself real quick, and then let's get into the conversation, guys.
So good morning, and thank you very much for having me again. This is the first time I've been on in 2025, Larry, and I got to say the last month has been a bit of a whirlwind. Last month has been the longest year of my life, is what I say. And there's a lot of activity going on in Washington D.C. and folks are getting now the reality of the implications of some of the massive changes that are happening here. We have announcements on a daily basis of major cuts to federal agencies, federal programs, government contracts. There is ongoing efforts by the Department of Government Efficiency to go agency by agency and cut out what they are deeming to be non-essential programs. And activities. And that is a very loaded term, right? Because what that defines, how you define non-essential. At this point, what we're understanding, and again, the data matters, the facts matter. At this point, they've canceled about 1,380 contracts, 1,382 contracts of different kinds. Entire departments have been let go. Entire offices have been told that their services are no longer needed. There was a goal of almost 7,000 cuts to the IRS workforce as we are in the middle of tax season. And from last numbers I heard, we were around 3,500 of actual emails that have gone out, individuals that have received termination letters. We are going to feel that throughout the nation. The majority of government employees are not located in the DC metro area. That's what people don't understand. The majority of government employees are actually located out in our communities and out in the nation. But we are facing a significant, what they're terming, the deconstruction of the administrative state. Making
Nigel, hold on just for a moment.
Go ahead.
I'm trying to make this make sense to me.
Okay.
Tax season is approaching.
Yes.
And it's already difficult to get the IRS to respond. So cutting 7,000 people from the IRS, doesn't this create a real sense of delay, frustration? And why would that make any sense?
Well, you should expect as an individual a delay in tax returns. If you're expecting a refund, you can expect a delay. So just prepare yourself for that. Also keep in mind that for business owners, this is the first quarter. So you have to do your quarterly payments, estimated tax payments in the first quarter. So understand that you're going to have some delays. So you need to plan for that and budget extra time to make sure that you're remaining compliant and you don't get yourself in any tax problems with the IRS. But they are going to have significant workforce declines. We saw the USAID go from 5,000 employees down to less than 200. That's not including the contractors
that were doing support work around the world to deliver on USAID services, right? So we are seeing implications not only in the federal sector, but also in the private sector as well. And that's not even including, I want to talk about a little bit about some of these executive orders that came out on January 20th and 21st that are having implications for supplier diversity programs and access to government contracts throughout all of the federal government.
Well, I'm looking forward to, really kind of getting a handle on, because one of the things we're going to talk about before we get off of this call is what is the Chamber's plan and what are we recommending that people do? And we have 4 points that we're going to talk about before we get off the call here today. And so I'm really, because what I'm hearing from people who are calling me on an ongoing basis, Larry, what does this mean? Are we not going to be able to have any federal contract? There's a degree of confusion. We have to be able to be the clarion voice to help people to understand the game plan and the strategy and how to stay calm, cool, and collective in the midst of chaos at this point in time. So we're going to do our job, and we ask people to take some responsibility in terms of what you're going to do, not just looking at what is Congress going to do, but what can we do to protect ourselves even right now? Because some people may agree or disagree with Trump, and that's okay. That's what makes America America. But politics is about your interests, and we have to be careful about what our interest is and what our interest isn't. So we're going to stay focused on the things that matter and move our agenda forward.
How can we benefit from this? There's everybody's hearing what's being repealed, what's being eradicated, and as a people, how can we actually benefit from this? There's got to be a way that there's got to be something that we need to be doing in the meantime.
Thanks, LaDonna. That's a great question. So we need to pivot, right? The emotional response time, if there was one, was between as we talked about this before, between November 5th and January 19th. Right? That time is gone. So this idea, right? Was there inefficiency in government? Yes. Was there waste? Unquestionably. Was there fraud? It's been proven. There have been court cases. All the above. Yes. Is this necessarily the way to go about it? I have my opinion. I disagree with how they're going about it. But at the end of the day, I've been advocating, and a number of folks in Washington have been advocating for private sector participation to deliver on government services for decades, right? The private sector can do it faster, better, cheaper in many cases. And as a matter of fact, in 2021, the Undersecretary of Defense testified before Congress and said that the number of contractors available to DOD has shrunk to such a degree that it's a national security risk. So they have to, at all sizes, massive companies like your massive defense contractors, all the way down to micro businesses, right? They need more new entrants, more competition, more folks bringing innovation and cost savings and resilience to the federal supply chain. So how do we, to answer your question, LaDonna, is how do we make sure our companies are ready to participate in this new environment and are able to compete for contracts in, quite honestly, a race neutral and gender neutral environment, which is what they're trying to create, right? They've eliminated through the courts a number of the provisions within programs that were trying to level the playing field and create access for opportunity. So given that in new environment, how do you do that? We've talked about this over and over again, Larry. We talked about our companies needing to get bigger, faster. We need to talk about joint ventures, mergers and acquisitions. We need to be able to compete on a larger scale for these larger contracts with more capacity, more capabilities, and expanded reach, right? So our businesses need to talk to each other and get on the same page and provide innovative, cost-saving solutions, value-driven, and very, very focused capabilities in order to be able to compete in this new environment.
Yeah, but what does that look like? Because to the basic business owner, and I'm not trying to say that we have to lower the bar or change our vocabulary, we're always often working in our business and not on it. So what does that look like if you can break it down and make it make sense so that business owners can listen to this show and say, you know what, that's what I got to do.
We need to step our game up, and we need to leverage the technology, and we need to start having some real difficult and honest conversations with ourselves and with each other. right? In this environment, if you're not using technology, if you're not taking time out of every single week to spend a few hours thinking how to leverage AI, how to leverage machine learning, automation to make your business function better, how can you find better business process? I don't care if you are an engineer designing something that's going on a rocket or you're a barber, everything in between. How are you being innovative and how are you finding a way to partner with others that are similar or in complementary services in order to improve your game?
You know,
That's what we need to be focused on.
I was just having a conversation with our construction committee, and we were talking about, and they were asking me and leadership about what do they need to do now. I said even though they 11246 was repealed and gotten rid of, I said it doesn't mean that they can't do business with black people. It simply means that as a prime contractor, you can compete and you can win as a prime, but you got to compete as a prime. And as a subcontractor, if you're subbing, then you got to make sure that you built relationships. It's like when the issue of the PPP happened and people try to get the money. Those people had banking relationships, ended up getting some money. If you didn't have strong banking relationship in the first round, you got no money. So
Mm-hmm.
it's still going to be about how you leverage your relationship with any prime contractor, because the primes decide who's going to be their subs.
So that's exactly. Can we dig a little bit deeper on that, Larry? Because that's a very good point. Because I want to highlight that in the context of what these executive orders have created. Right, the environment they've created is not only so. On day one, there was an executive order that was signed that targeted DEI, and it was called "Ending Racial and Wasteful DEI Programs and Preferencing."
Yep.
Now that went after day one. Okay, that went after DEI initiatives within the federal government, anyone in a DEI office, and so forth, titled DEI. But it also had a specific statement in there talking about contracts and set asides. So they highlighted that as well. The next day, there was another executive order signed on January 21 calling Ending Illegal Discrimination and Restoring Merit Based Opportunity. That also targets contracts and set asides, right? This is also one that targets companies with federal contracts that are not doing DEI work, right? That you could be doing cloud migration, cybersecurity, financial management systems, whatever your facilities management, HVAC, whatever, landscaping. But if you're doing anything that they're deeming DEI within your company, they're
Hmm.
going to target you. Okay. It directs agencies to use their oversight authority to advance the anti DEI policies throughout the private sector. It also directs agencies to identify private sector institutions, foundations, associations, publicly traded corporations, and endowments that are deemed to be doing and supporting DEI initiatives in order to refer them for DOJ investigations.
And Nigel, that's why it's so important. One of the points I want to put a pin in is that we have to be able to, what we consider to be, not react, but to have an agenda. They have an agenda and they're working their agenda out. We need to have an agenda. What we ought to be doing, from my perspective, is that we ought to, when it comes to DEI in the private sector and our $1.6 trillion of spending power, we ought to make sure we support companies that embrace DEI. Those who don't embrace it, you ought to consider whether you want to spend money with them.
Right.
I mean, that's the biggest thing that you can do. Whether you be Target, whether you be Costco's, they will understand the power of the dollar. That's one thing they'll never. You can always get their attention when you talk about shareholders' equity and the value of stock going down, because shareholders will rise up and they'll have a problem, just like they have with Target now with DEI, where the shareholders are suing Target for misleading them in terms of the consequence of DEI, because black people and other people are not spending money with Target. And I think it's having a profound impact at some level. But if we don't continue to make that a part of our culture and make sure that we understand that we're doing business with people um, who are not trying to tolerate us, but people who are really embracing the things that impact us in the positive sense. Very simple. It's not complicated, but we ought to do more of that.
But
Well,
I'm trying to listen to our show from a perspective of the audience. I just want to make sure that the audience knows that they can call 773-591-1690. And it's okay to come in and ask your DEI questions because this sounds very high level and it can be convoluted and complicated. But there are so many small things that can be done from each of our listeners that are taking part in this show right now. So I just want to let everybody know you can call in 773-591-1690. You're listening to the Wake Up Show Chicago. Nigel, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
No, please, no. And I want to be clear that the DEI discussion, I'm not a DEI expert. The different definitions of it in different places. There are lawyers and experts in that space. I want us to focus on the procurement issues and the contracts and the economic impact discussion that we can have, right? And Larry talked about it before with regards to companies that already you have relationships and you're already members of a supply chain and have been delivering for prime contractors and other partners that you've been working with. Those are relationships, right? So these are business relationships that you already have. How do you leverage that in a race neutral environment? My company's been doing business with your company for 12 years, 15 years, whatever it may be. That's not a DEI situation. That is a business relationship. So how do we then leverage that? And then how do you build upon it? How do you create those strategic partnerships? Larry talked about something, and I want us to really focus on this with regards to the consumer spend. African American, I just pulled up the information. It's a little bit dated. It's about 2021 now. African American annual consumer spend is $1.8 trillion. $1.8 trillion. The Hispanic American consumer spend is $2.1 trillion. So between those two communities, you have $3.9 trillion in annual consumer spend. Let's put that in context. That's a huge number, right?
Yeah.
That when you're in the equivalent of US dollars, the annual GDP of France is $3.2 trillion. GDP of Italy is 2.5. GDP of Canada is 2.3. The GDP of Brazil is 2.3. The GDP of Russia is 2.1 trillion US dollars. So just the black and brown community, African American and Hispanic American annual spend, consumer spend is larger than the annual GDP of Russia. So the question is not, do we point the fingers and why aren't these leaders doing XYZ for us? What are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
You've got $3.9 trillion of annual consumer spend. What are you going to do with that?
I love it. Well, we've got a couple of callers. Larry, you're going to transition to the phone. I'm going to go ahead and pick up George. Good morning, George. You're on the Wake Up Show Chicago. George, can you hear me,
Can you hear
George?
me?
There you go. Now I can hear you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Gentlemen, I just wanted to add a little bit about DEI. I definitely agree with it in principle, but I think the majority of the benefit, if you look at the numbers, is to the largest minority group, which is not African Americans. It's important for people to note that Caucasian women are the largest minority group, and we shouldn't just be the ones out there protesting and doing these things to support these initiatives. It's important that the people that actually are benefiting the most are also on the front lines, rather than putting ourselves out there all the time in all these issues when we're not the main benefactors.
Thank you, George. Thank you so much. We have Tommy. Tommy, good morning.
First of all, let me say good morning to all of you. And I think that it becomes very, very important. I am 73 years old. All of this stuff to me is absolute, unequivocal nonsense. And you know why? Because I live in the greatest country on the face of the earth, so much so that I served the country because I followed the law. Not because I wanted to, but it was the law. If you received a letter, then you reported to induction in the military of the United States of America. See, the problem with some of you people, and I don't mean some of you like speaking to you condescending or any of the other listening audience, until you live with 1 year of every day knowing that you're going to die or kill someone, and know that this has never been a position or thought that you've ever had in your mind, skip all of that. Come back to America. They tell you you're a baby killer because the young people over here in this country is listening to Jane Fonda. Man, are you people crazy? These people have been showing black people since they landed here in America, you ain't never had humanistic rights. You don't have them now. And you're still running around here not trying to understand a simple thing. Every other ethnicity in America, when it comes to this kind of nonsense, they know how to unite amongst themselves and create their enclave, and which is why we have little Italy. Hey, I tell you what, go down 47th Street. It's 200 sundown towns in America. Guess where one of them is at?
Where?
Right here in Chicago.
Where?
Right here in Chicago. Go down 47th Street and go past Western and see what the hell will happen to you between Western Avenue and Cicero. Why do you think Cicero is the way it is? Al Capone, February, St. Valentine's Massacre. Some Italians come on the north side, kill up a bunch of Irish gangsters. Well, wait a minute, stop the car. How could the Italians tell the Irish what to do if they were not communicating? And more importantly than that, after he did it, he went back to Cicero. Go over there at Cicero now. Look who controls it. You cannot be so brain dead as not to listen to individuals like yourself. Please, I'm not talking derogatory to you, because if you guys do not keep doing what you're doing. But the one thing that you have to do, if you want to reach the masses of people, it is absolutely critical that in World War II, the United States of America produced 62% of everything produced in the world.
Well,
Now,
Tommy,
how damn stupid can you be?
man,
Goodbye.
Tommy, here's the thing, Tommy. Tommy always has a wealth of knowledge. He always has a wealth of, I should say, history. And I really want to thank you for that piece of history, because it gives us a little bit of context of what we're still dealing with. But right now we're really focused on what Nigel and Larry are talking about when it comes to the rollback and the eradication of what's going on now in the White House. Mike, we have Mike on the line, and Larry can come back on because he is on the phone now. He has transitioned from camera to phone. But we had is Mike still there? Okay, let's go to Stephen. Good morning, Stephen. What you got for the wake up show?
Hey, good morning, LaDonna, Nigel, and Larry, is it?
Yes. Larry Ivory.
Okay, wonderful. As I'm listening to the conversation, it seems like we're always too little too late. The election took place in November, y'all. And Trump told everybody what he was going to do. He's in office his first 100 days doing exactly what he campaigned he was going to do. But there was no preparation for the people from November to now. So you have folks who knew that the government, DOGE, was going to be established. They knew there were going to be mass hirings. They knew there was going to be mass deportations, and no one prepared for it. And so for us as a community, yes, DEI is important to those who were benefiting from it. But at the end of the day, what Nigel said, $1.8 trillion in consumer spending every year, $1 trillion is $1 million an hour for 114 years.
Ooh.
That's what $1 trillion is. $1 million an hour for 114 years. This is what black folks are working with in this country every year. And we have the nerve to be whining and complaining about what somebody is taking from us instead of us using what we already have.
Wow, Nigel.
But we got to get back to the basics. Jim Crow was the best time for us because we were separate and we were independent. We had to take care of ourselves. Integration has been the biggest impediment to our rise as a people. So can Nigel kind of speak to what we can do as a people with that $1.8 trillion a year?
Come on, Stephen.
Yeah,
Nigel.
yeah. I won't touch that last statement about about Jim Crow. All right.
Right.
However, look, let's look at the fact in 2024, African American women were the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs of starting new businesses in the country. While they make up only 10% of the population, they're the fastest growing entrepreneurs starting new businesses in the country. Okay. We have a robust business sector that we need to support and enhance. And now the discussion that is happening is what's going to happen with regards to government contracting at the federal, state, and local level, private sector strategic partnerships, private sector business relationships that we need to enhance, even in the new paradigm. This isn't about complaining and moaning and all right. This is about pivot. This is about in a new environment, in a race and gender neutral. Because remember, the court case that just got that was just Mid America Milling versus the U.S. Department of Transportation. They put a temporary injunction on the Department of Transportation DBE goals. That is not just minority business. That's minority and women-owned business. So understand that this is when you look at the executive orders and you look at the OMB memos and the Department of Justice memos that are going out to the agencies, it's not just targeting minority business contracts. It includes women as well. So somebody called in earlier about being a veteran. Look at what has been created in the environment and look and pivot. Okay. If you are a service disabled veteran, there's a program with a 5% goal in the federal government with limited competition, set asides, and sole source capabilities. In the Defense Authorization Bill last year, they created a new program, which was for veterans that were not service disabled, that also had a 5% goal, that also had set aside and sole source competition capabilities, so sole source capabilities, right? So if you are a veteran and you're an entrepreneur, you need to go in and certify as that. Right? If you're located, go to the SBA website and look whether or not your business is located in a hub zone. And can you hire people from your community to put to work in your business so you can qualify for hub zone contracts? This is about business owners being strategic and pivoting in the new paradigm in order to make sure you remain successful. Okay. Now, the other part is continuing to drive the argument about why new entrants and greater competition is essential at every single level of contracting, and particularly in the private sector, making sure that they have a robust supply chain. Larry, you and I have talked about this before when we talked about competitiveness in a global marketplace. Every single committee hearing I go to in Congress, I don't care whether they're talking about healthcare, transportation, defense, or telecom. We're talking about competing economically with China. China is going to be our number one economic competitor for the next 100 years, fighting for global dominance. There is no way for the United States to compete economically at 350 million Americans, to compete economically with 1.3 billion Chinese, if we are continuously taking entire segments of our population out of the economy. What makes America great economically is the ability to take new items, innovate, bring it to market, and scale it faster than anyone else. Okay? In order to do that, we need a robust startup community. We need a robust small business community. We need a robust large business community that can take those innovations and scale. We need to facilitate an environment that builds a robust relationship between those small business innovators and creators and the large businesses that are able to scale. We need all hands on deck in order to grow this economy and to build it out in the way that we need. And in order to do that, we cannot continue to pull diverse business owners out of that marketplace simply because we want to label it as DEI or affirmative action or whatever it may be. We need to facilitate new entrants to the marketplace, more competition that's going to bring innovation, cost savings, and a resilient supply chain.
That's Nigel. Let me interject here now because I'm listening very carefully, and I want to chime in on something that I think is real relevant in terms of our conversation. Because you mentioned the global competitiveness
And as you know, we have a objective and an initiative as a part of our game plan to begin to think globally. And when you take a look at China and Africa and their footprint, we have fundamentally conceded a great deal of opportunity to the Chinese and our competitive advantage in the richest place in the world with natural resources in Africa. We got to begin to think globally and create legacy wealth by doing business with our brothers and sisters overseas. We can't just look at America as the only place that we're going to do business. We got to think globally. And I think it's an important part of our strategy. The other thing I want to add before we get off the ball is that we have an initiative, the Chamber has an initiative, where we're looking at Black businesses and supporting Black business, like Michelle Foods, but we plan to impact, her business in a very positive way by taking the consumer buying power. This is something everyone can do. Go out and buy Michelle syrup. You're buying syrup, buy it from a sister who's been around 41 years. There are things that we can do that I think is just necessary for our own survival, and we can feel good about it at the same time. So we're going to be bringing opportunities. We've said very clearly that support those who support you, don't support those who don't support you. Take a look at Black businesses and make sure that we have a catalog of people that we can buy business from and have an alternative in terms of it. And those are the things I think we must do, and I think that we will be better for it. So at the end of the day, we may come out of this thing stronger and better than we ever thought, because it's going to force us to look internally from my perspective. So I'll pause there, and I'll let Nigel, anything that you or LaDonna want to add to that part of my conversation, then I'm all ears.
Larry, I want to add something to that. Hey, Nigel, this is Lorenzo. I'm one of the producers on the show.
How you doing, Lorenzo?
I'm doing well. With to kind of follow up on what Larry said, because I know you had mentioned China and its global dominance, and you mentioned several things on America and what it's doing in its move for global dominance. My question to you is, and kind of following up with what Larry was saying, with what's going on globally with America and its relationships with China, Russia, and countries in Africa and the Middle East, with what America's doing right now, or with what our administration is doing right now with the tariffs and the sanctions and whatnot, is that the proper plan when you're talking about strengthening the American dollar and businesses, not only within our country, with our Black businesses and other nations around the world? Is that an effective way when we're talking about improving ourselves as Americans here in America, or Black Americans, within America? How should we move forward when we see the collapse of the American dollar with poor business relationships around the world?
Well, let's be very clear. America is hands down the dominant economy in the world. And what I'm talking about is not Chinese dominance. They are gaining ground at an extremely rapid pace. But there's no question that the dominant economy in the world is the United States. What I'm saying is, in order to continue to maintain that, we need all hands on deck. In order to continue to maintain that, we need to be strategic. I disagree with the tariffs. I think tariffs end up costing consumers more in the long run, because the tariffs are paid by the folks in the country where the tariff is assigned. It's a tax on goods coming into the country. So your products, at the end of the day, when you go buy lumber at Home Depot, it's going to cost you more if that lumber is coming in from Canada and there's a 10% tariff on Canadian products, right? That's how it's going to end up costing. However, we need to have the conversation. What Larry's talking about is how we play a role in enhancing that opportunity for the American economy, right? Yes, Black business, but business first, right? We are business owners first. So the question is, we now are in an environment where rare minerals, right? China's doing their best to dominate and reach out to African countries to get access to things like lithium and cobalt and things like that, in order to drive their technology growth in their technology industries. We need those resources here in the United States. Not only do we need the resources, we need to vertically integrate the production and the utilization of those resources. So it's not enough to bring in barges of lithium into the country. Yes, we do need to do that. Absolutely. But when do we process that into lithium ion and take that and put it into a battery? So then that battery can be put into a car or a home battery. And so we need to play a role in that. And so that's what I think Larry's talking about is we have relationships, we have business agreements, we have connections, we have history and culture with these other nations. Why aren't we leveraging that in order to be a significant part of the US economy? And not everything, look, not everything is, are we going to fight? Yes, fight certain things. Just yesterday, the District Court of Maryland issued a nationwide injunction on portions of these executive orders that we were talking about, right? So things are being done, cases are being filed. We're winning in some places, losing in some, fine. But this administration also talked about making sure that foreign investment to bring things like data centers to the United States get expedited. Those data centers are going to drive the technology for AI and automation. That's the future of our entire economy. That's not a negative thing, right? That let them do those things. But the question is, how do we play a role in all of that? How do we make sure that as this technology and these innovations come, that we are making those hard decisions of supporting our own businesses, improving our own businesses, and looking for new markets and creating new market opportunities overseas and within our own communities in order to grow our businesses.
I agree with that. And I think we got a caller, don't
We have a couple of callers, so we're going to go ahead and grab them really quickly. Thank you, Nigel, Larry. All right, Chris, hi. And Terry, we see you out there. Hi, Chris. Good morning. Welcome to the Wake Up Show, Chicago. Chris, hi. There you go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Good
There.
morning.
Good morning.
How's everybody?
Doing well,
Doing
sir.
well,
Thanks for
doing well.
asking.
Okay. In observance of Black History Month, and also condolence to the passing of Jerry Butler. Great show y'all got.
Thank you.
I just want to interject a couple things. So we there's a great cause by Tommy and Brother Steve always. I just want to say a couple things. I was born in the night, but not last night.
I know that's right.
So we have the person, Elon Musk, not an American citizen. It's like the hen guarding the hen house with all the entanglements of his companies and all of the violations, worker violation from California. So he had to move to Texas. With the Doge, are we looking at his the waste, fraud, mismanagement of his companies, and also the upside downness worldwide of Tesla? So how could we trust everything he's saying when we also have the Transparency Act? We also have the Treasury watchdogs. How can a citizen and the biggest donor of the current president have so much say for all of our things, right? And America has always been so backwards thinking that they screwed the American people about outsourcing jobs, like with the NAFTA. Even before NAFTA, back in the day, you could take care of your family with a high school job, work in the auto field, like the factories, support your family, buy a house, be solidly middle class. But the corporate greed, like the average CEO is 15,000 times salary versus a normal worker. So they'd rather outsource it, send it, and ship it.
So Chris, I got to interrupt you real quick. Do you have a particular question that you have in reference to the subject matter we're having? Because I do appreciate the dialogue you're having, but just due to the time frame, there's a couple of things that we want to make sure we get to. So if you could, if you got a question, let's take the question.
Yeah, I'll say this and I'll be brief, real quick. I know you got other callers. So I think we need to take these matters, like these executive orders, get them into court and see the legality, constitutionalness of it,
because all of the things we fought for and earned can't be taken back by an executive order. And then some of the waste fraud, so we can go to the Super Bowl. The president can go to the Super Bowl for $20 million on our dime. Also have our Secret Service in his hotels on our dime, and then go to the racetrack for a few minutes.
Absolutely. Hey, Chris, point well taken. Thanks a lot for your input. Let me also just say this, guys. We need to really kind of, from my perspective, is that I want to make sure that we don't leave this conversation without what it is that we can do right now ourselves. Because what they're going to do, they're going to do. The courts are going to ballot out. We're going to have elections coming up. But what can we begin to do right now? And I think when we focus our attention is this. We got to do business with those who do business with us. You can do that right now, today. You can go and support Black businesses today, right now, today. You can do that. We can begin to think globally and build relationships overseas right now. That we're going to Zimbabwe in May. So these are the things I think is really, I think that our listening audience can do. Go buy Michelle's syrup.
And actually, we have a post on our Facebook about where to go. All of the list of stores that Michelle's syrup is listed at, and it shows you what you can do to help with forwarding the movement of her product. So, Larry, that's posted on our social media.
What I want to chime in on is that it's not just Michelle's. Mm-hmm. It's the power of. I love the comment: "A government for the people, by the people, shall not perish." The people always have the power if they exercise the power. And we have to exercise our economic power by supporting those people who support us, by doing business, not with just Michelle Food, but there's thousands of Black businesses that you can go online, go into the store. We got to identify those stores, and we got to invest in those stores. That's something we can do. Everyone else can celebrate that, and we ought to do that. We're going to talk about all the other stuff that we're going to have to do, but at the same time, we have to begin to just focus up. And I'll pass it back to Nigel because I know we're wrapping up here. The show goes by so fast.
Yeah, it does. And we got a couple of callers too, just so you know. Go ahead, Nigel.
Oh, okay.
No, absolutely. No, let's get to the callers.
All right. We got Jesse Jackson Jr. on the line. Good morning, Jesse.
Hey, LaDonna.
Former congressman, yes.
I just want to say that I very much enjoy the conversation this morning, and I talk enough during the week. But I just want to make a point about looking at some of the global competitiveness issues from the Congressional Black Caucus's perspective. When I was in Congress, we saw ourselves as a kind of moral arbitrator. That is, we know where the lithium deposits are. We know where the cobalt deposits are. We know where the rubber for every tire in the United States comes from. And what we would extract from the federal budget, and I'd appreciate your participants and panelists to share with us their thinking on the moral considerations, is we stood between corporate America and complete exploitation of poor countries. In other words, we're going to fix their water. We're going to help them with their environmental problems. We're going to use ASID to return something back to Africa other than a finished product that they cannot afford. So they give us the raw materials. We bring them to the United States. We bring them to the industrialized and developed world. It becomes a finished product. But when it's sent back to Africa in the form of a Tesla, no one can afford it. So one of the challenges that we have are the moral considerations. And I fear that in the Trump era and DOGE running through every department, what we're looking at is a new group of people who are saying we don't care about moral decisions. We're only interested in global competitiveness. That's my comment, and I'd love to hear your participants respond to those thinking. Thank you so much, guys.
Congressman, thank you very much for that, and it's great to hear your voice again. So the issue there is in competition with China. Part of the issue that we have had is it is the American government that has been layering in those things, demanding environmental protections, demanding worker protections in these cases, whereas the Chinese government was not, right? It is the ability for the CBC to lean in as the conscience of the Congress in order to require those things as a part of what is being delivered economically as well as societally in these areas where we're getting raw minerals and resources and so forth. So absolutely, it is the role of Congress. It is the role of the U.S. government in order to do that. But in the world of, we are going to see unintended or intended consequences. I will not judge that. Look, you mentioned USAID. We went from 5,000 USAID employees down to less than 200. Okay, we immediately cut a lot of programs, and they said, we're going to get back to the aid. We'll get the stuff out to folks. Yes, but that's not how the infrastructure works. And so now you have not only elimination of those federal jobs, but a lot of the government contracts were run by private sector companies that were delivering around the world. And when you do those things, it does not only give economic impact. When you're doing a water treatment facility and you're putting in, waste facilities, waste management facilities, you are helping to drive American interests around the world in a non-defense way. Okay, so we can do that.
If I can just add a very, very quick point, the accountability comes from the slave trade, because we are in America and America owes us some responsibility for the development or de-development in Africa. We have demands of America that the Chinese don't have of Africa. So yes, we fight Chinese exploitation for the minerals in Africa, but at a different level. We as Black people have an obligation to say, because you participated in this trade of exploitation, we have minimum expectations for what the U.S. government must do in Africa and not unleash the Elon Musks of life on that continent because of the devastation that they can reap on that nation that we have experienced as a people. We have a political accountability in the United States to that.
I'm getting nervous here.
And colonization.
I'm looking at the time. It's 9:58, and this got really good. Like the whole show is always amazingly awesome. But I want to get Terry Simmons on for like 20 seconds, Terry.
Come on, Terry.
And we got to roll this thing out because you know how radio goes. Hi, Terry. Good morning. Thank you, Jesse.
Good morning. Good morning. Thank you. And this conversation is fire. Thank you guys for having me. And Larry, thank you for always being a great partner. I'm Terry Simmons. I am the operator of the Illinois Minority Business Development Agency, which means I have a federal contract with the U.S. Department of Commerce to operate one of 40 businesses throughout the USA. Our goal is to help businesses create 250 jobs annually and help them get access to $50 million in capital and contracts. And on March 13th, we're holding our third annual business summit at Malcolm X College, where we're going to be doing just that. All of the things that you guys were talking about, we're helping businesses collaborate with others so they can compete and secure contracts. We're helping them to understand how to leverage AI and to find better business processes. We're also launching our own marketplace. We're talking about doing business with each other. We're launching our own marketplace, which is an online shopping space for businesses to connect with large buyers to receive orders without a contract.
And where can they find you, Terry? Because we got Terry. Where can they? Okay, you said March 13th. Okay, tell them where you can find you, and then I got to tell them where they can find us. It's 10 o'clock.
Okay, where you can find us at www.strategicexceptions.com. And for our evening VIP reception, Ms. LaDonna Raeh will be there as our host, where we will be recognizing women in power. Thank you so much for having me on the show this morning.
Absolutely. Well said. All right, everyone. You've been listening to the Wake Up Show Chicago on WVON 1690. We can be heard on iHeartRadio as well as YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Go onto Facebook and hit that like button. Post your thoughts and go ahead and buy Michelle syrup in every food service area where we have listed on the flyer that is on the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce, and I'll post it on the Wake Up Show as well. We'll be back. I want to thank our guest, which is Nigel Stevens of Phoenix Strategies. Thank you so much for being here. You have always given us a wealth of information, and I want to thank my co-host, or who I am co-host to, the head honcho, Mr. Larry Ivory, the president and CEO of the Illinois State Black Chamber of Commerce. Go to ilbcc.org and become a member. Membership has its benefits. And I want to thank my assistant producer, Mr. Lorenzo T. Hughes, for holding it down and keeping us around and keeping us looking good with the sound. Okay.
Yes, indeed. Thank you, Nigel.
All right, guys. See you next Saturday on the Wake Up Show Chicago. Chicago. Bye-bye for now. LaDonna
Get
Raeh.
ready to wake up. Pulse of progress as we amplify voices, break barriers, and illuminate the path towards a more inclusive. Follow socials at The Wake Up Show Chicago. Be sure to subscribe. Morning at 9, where change begins with every sunrise. Welcome to The Wake Up Show Chicago.
That's the end?
The talk of Chicago is 1690 WVON, Berwyn, Chicago.
Did you know a woman's risk of breast cancer nearly doubles if she has a first-degree relative? That's a mother. October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Schedule your mammogram today.
Hey, it's Jesse Jackson Jr., host of The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Catch me Monday through Thursday from 3 to 6 p.m. right here on WVON. We're diving into the issues that matter most to our community, sharing powerful stories and keeping you in the know. Join me for the conversation every Monday through Thursday from 3 to 6 p.m. on the station bringing you what's now and what's next. WVON.